Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar that's going to talk about the competing with the big guys in the market. This is our David versus Goliath. So if you are an independent home care agency, and we certainly have a lot of independent home care agencies as our clients, and they are definitely competing in the market against the larger entities, whether it be a franchise or a hospital-based system. But so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before I get into it. I do have everyone on mute mode. So if you have a question, please look on your screen on the right-hand side, and you have a place that says questions. You can ask any kind of questions you would like, and we will try to get to all of them before the end of this webinar today. But if we don't, we will reach out to you personally and answer your question or give you a resource, whichever it is that you're looking for. I also am recording this. We do not give out the presentation slides for Core Cubed webinars, but we do post the webinars right after we have completed them on our Core Cubed website on the events page. So if you would like to share this webinar with someone, you can have them go there, and we will have the webinar in its entirety, so you can watch it as many times as you would like on our corecubed.com events page. I am Merrily Orsini, and I'm actually who is speaking right now. So there's a great picture of me with a little greenery in the background. So I have been in home care for an awfully long time, more than most of you on this call have probably been alive. So in that time span, I have walked in your shoes. I have owned an agency. I've been active in lots of organizations that support the home care industry, and still work very closely with the home care industry, and it's really one of my passions. So we have been providing services through Core Cubed for, gosh, 19 years now, and specifically focused on the home care market starting about 10 years ago, and then really fine-tuning our focus a few years ago. So we really only deal with aging care businesses and primarily in the home care space. So I thank you again for joining us today. My two other presenters today are both managing directors for Core Cubed, and Marissa Snook has been with Core Cubed for a long time. How long have you been here, Marissa? I forget. It seems like since
about 12 years or so now.
Since you were a child. And specifically, this is our 10th anniversary of our MOST program, and that's what Marissa administers. In addition to lots of other things, she's also specializes in digital marketing, and is just a wonderful addition. And both Marissa and Amy Selle, who is our other managing director, really do put us ahead in terms of understanding how to market home care and understanding how to go to market and keeping up with all the trends in digital marketing and other kinds of marketing. So Amy, thank you so much for being here, and Marissa, thank you for being here today.
Great. Glad to have everyone with us.
Do you know, the independent home care agency for several years in some markets was really a fabulous model, and before there were so many competitors in this space, it was not that hard to find good referral sources, good caregivers, good clients. But what's happening now is that as the market is starting to become more understood and starting to have more players in it, oftentimes that independent agency feels like it's a David and Goliath situation, because perhaps you have an excellent service and you have been providing it when not had to do a lot of marketing, and now you're finding yourself in a situation where you really do need to do that. So everyone loves the underdog, and the small independent agency is sometimes considered the underdog in these situations, although we certainly do know how to position a small agency to look just as big and fierce as the big guys. Now, the positive thing is that whether you're marketing or whether you're selling, whether you're a franchise or an independent agency, there's some level playing field and some common grounds. And I think the biggest thing is who is searching for services. And the fact that people don't oftentimes study home care, understand home care, know anything about home care or even any kind of care options until a care need is apparent. And when it becomes apparent, then, and lots of things can happen that it would become apparent, and you may never have even thought about it. Even a hospital discharge. A family, oftentimes when their family member goes into the hospital perfectly healthy, perfectly well, has some kind of a procedure, and they're quite astounded at the incapacity that happens while in the hospital and what happens at discharge. So oftentimes it is something that happens pretty unexpectedly. And then the other thing is, it's a very complicated industry. Our segment of it, the private pay home care business, is not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward, but we're not the only model out there. So if you're dealing with referral sources or families, then when people are starting to have that care need, then they have questions. You know, they oftentimes don't know who covers it. Are there eligibility requirements? So, and what does the person who comes actually do when they get there? So, and how do you talk to them about what is needed to do? You know, maybe my mother is resistant to care, and maybe she's demanding, and so, and maybe she has things she likes done in a certain way. So, so what is it that that happens in home care? So a lot of common things when someone is starting to search for home care. And I think the biggest thing is that it is always emotionally charged. We have oftentimes, for the most part, I can't even remember a time when it isn't highly emotionally charged, because someone that you love or that you care for is going from a situation where they have been completely independent into a situation where they are not. And that care, because it's very human to human, it's highly personal in nature. And also people want care when they want it and where they want it. So, so it is very time and location sensitive. And the other thing is, you really don't have any idea when you start care how long it's going to be. Is the recuperation from that hospital stay going to be a couple of days, or is this something that the person who's come out of the hospital will need help from this day forward? So the other thing for private pay is you have a very small needle in a haystack kind of a client search, because someone who is coming into private pay either has to have the money to pay for it or has to have some way that they can get it paid for, and or if they are eligible for some other services that are paid for elsewhere, have the luck to really find that out. So some commonalities, but lots of differences. So what we're going to talk about today is, how does a small agency compete? And how does a small agency get clients to come in and knock on their door, make that phone call, go to their website, whatever? Well, this is really the basis. The agency has to provide excellent service, and you have to have operational excellence in your agency. That is generally, the operational excellence component is generally the difference in a small operation and a larger operation. But the other bigger difference is going to market professionally. A larger entity will have either a marketing department in-house, will have contracted with an agency, a marketing advertising agency, and will have done all of the things that need to be done in order to make the business look professional. So that is really the biggest difference, is that marketing professionally and understanding how to do that component. And you know, as social workers or nurses or just regular people who've decided you want to help other people, you don't necessarily, and for the most part probably will not have access to that information to really understand the strategy behind marketing, or have the talent in-house to bring that professional marketing to your agency. So we're going to start with talking about reputation, because the one thing we're not really going to talk a lot about today is why digital marketing works for home care. We have lots of webinars on that, and some of you had asked those questions to try to find out. I would suggest you go to our Core Cubed website and look for some of those digital marketing webinars, because there's lots and lots of information out there that we are putting out about digital marketing. But the reputation is really the one thing that people go on, and it doesn't really matter what your agency size is. But that reputation, where does it start? It's not just, yes, you provide an excellent service and people are talking about it, but it also starts with your visuals and messaging. And there's all kinds of strategies and tactics, and this is, we're going to give you a list of things to do today, and it may seem like if you're a small agency it might be hard to achieve, but it's really not. If you have a plan and you know what you're trying to accomplish, then you can systematically work through all of the things you need to do and not have to spend a huge amount of money to do it. So these are really primary marketing tactics, and this looks like a lot, but again, these are the kinds of things, if you have a home care business, that you are going to be doing. And these are some of these things the franchises or the larger entities do really well, and some of them they don't do very well with at all. So, but all of these things you need to do in some form or fashion in your market in order to be able to continue to have a positive reputation and continue to grow your business and be able to effectively compete against the bigger players in the market. We're going to talk about most of these things today, but we're not going to talk about all of these things today, and we're actually not going to talk about many of these things today in much depth. So we're really just going to go over, if you truly want to compete, again, you must start off with the fact that you have an excellent service, because that is your bottom line that you have to have in order to compete. And you also do have to have that operational excellence that I talked about initially. So in addition to that, these are the kinds of things, the primary marketing things that you need to be doing in your local community.
And those things are going to build your reputation.
Yes. They will build your reputation. Thank you, Marissa. And this, when I say building a reputation, this is really branding. So this is something most small agencies skip, is the very first step. It's sort of like building a foundation. But at this point in time, where the healthcare at home industry is changing, there's a lot of competition. Some is local, some is national, some is local but large. They're like a hospital-based system. So, but this is where it starts. And these are the kinds of things that a professional marketing agency will help you decide. And because it was funny, Marissa was sharing today, or well, actually it was Amy sharing today about someone very proud of a brochure that they had created themselves, and it was a typical home care brochure of a listing of every single thing that they do. Now, the problem is every other person in that market does all of those same things. And so these are the kinds of things a marketing agency will help you determine, because it's very hard to do this for yourself. So this is really deciding who you are, what is the story you should be telling, how are you different, what is it that you do special that sets you apart from someone else. And then the other thing that we used to call this the branding police, and I've done this for clients before, and actually done it for even larger organizations, where we do really a brand audit and go through and check everything. Is everything consistent? We had a client today send out a communication, very unprofessional communication, and do you know, it was not consistent with all their other communication, and it would have only taken 5 minutes to do it correctly so that it would have presented the company in a positive light, and it would have been consistent with their branding. Anything here? Yeah, good.
I was just going to say I wanted to jump in on this slide and just reiterate a point that we made earlier, which is that typically the giants in home care, the franchises, and the bigger home care startups, what they have are the resources available to them already. So the corporate marketing department has done all of these things. And what we tend to encounter as we're interviewing agencies to become new clients is that, we, through talking to an agency, we're able to tell that they're a very high quality agency in how they operate and how they execute and just how they're running the business. And that's also told by what they're achieving. But when we look at their marketing materials, their website, their brochure, it does not tell that same story, and or it does not project them to the market as high a quality as what we're hearing from them. And so we work with those smaller agencies who don't have that corporate marketing department to make sure that they're differentiating themselves from other agencies by telling their story and by having a more professional face to the market and to the potential employees that they're recruiting as well.
What we're talking about really is building a brand. And some of the national home care franchises have a lot of money that they spend on creating the brand. A few years ago, the largest private duty home care franchise in the world actually conducted a brand study, and found out that even though they had spent a huge amount of money on branding, that it wasn't a brand that was recognized. Now, since then, some brands have been recognized in home care because home care is becoming a little more known and more people do know about it. But at that time, all the branding that the larger companies had done really wasn't helping them at all or helping their franchisees. But you can compete with a larger brand. It may not be, your name or your logo may not be familiar in the beginning, but the concept of home care is, and people are going to be looking at your brand and they're going to see it either in a brochure or in a rack card or on the web, or they're going to see your brand. And if it's competing, and it will be when someone's searching for care against these larger brands, it really does make a difference. So you just, this all starts, and again, we're not going to talk about the statistics that make us realize that how important it is to have a web presence, and that web presence should be professional and well developed. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it definitely should be professionally developed because they are going to go look online. Whether you've met them at a church function or at a hospital bedside where someone asks you to come meet their neighbor, whatever the original communication is, they're going to go to your website and check you out. And that is where you're going to win them or lose them, because they're going to be checking other websites, and that is something, so that branding, that professional brand, definitely has to follow through in everything that you do, and that is the starting point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that consumers do make first impression judgments about your brand, and if your website or your brochure looks very homespun or amateurish, they may translate that to thinking that your services are also amateurish, and it's kind of a subconscious process that they're having, but that they do make those assumptions.
Yes, we have a workshop, a webinar that we do. Actually, I'm doing it in California in April for their annual meeting about the psychology behind that home care search. And branding is a definite component. It's a behavioral reaction to something that's positive or negative. So having that professional brand, and in understanding it, it's beyond just having someone create it for you. It's understanding the importance of marketing. And I'm not talking about marketing as sales. I'm talking about marketing as a business strategy that helps you grow your business and reach those people that you're interested in reaching. So it is of crucial importance that you understand that. We had a company that we had suggested they do professional branding because they had the very strange looking logo, and it turned out it was the company owner's, the initials of her children, which, you know, were very important to her, obviously, but not something that translated into a brand for a business that would compel someone to call her or to use her business. So if you've got things like that going on within your business, it's time to take a look at it and see if you can't do something a little more professional. Actually, a lot more professional in order to compete with the Goliaths there in the market, because it's only going to be more important to have a good, clean brand that is also consistent. Now,
consistency in both the message and the visual, which I think sometimes we forget that our brand faces outward and it also faces inward. So we want to be repeating the same messages that we are saying to the market, to our own employees, because they are our brand ambassadors, and they should be able to repeat those messages and the company's story and share that with other people to get them interested in the company. And your story is what gets potential new hires interested in your company. And so Merrily will elaborate more, but that consistency in brand messaging, why you do what you do, how you do it differently, is very important, because it attracts not just the people who are going to purchase your services, but the people who match with what your vision is for the business and hold the same quality objectives that you hold. So, very often it's very common for people to post a job listing. I have an open position, these are the hours, this is the title, and not say this is the kind of person I'm looking for, because this is what our company is about. And that's an example of carrying your brand through, on the recruitment side and not just on the new consumer acquisition side.
I will also say that we have done branding work, messaging, all that for large franchises as well. And when the first one that we did, it was interesting because the biggest problem we had was getting each of the independent franchise owners to use the material, because everybody always wanted to create an invitation or create an email or do something that was off-brand. Now, they were happy with it because they were thrilled at their capacity to be able to do something graphic, and they thought it was great, but it was off-brand for the brand. And so it's really interesting to me. And I've also done work, as I said, with organizations, and my most recent was with a elder care organization. And the funny thing was they were doing the same thing. We were trying to get them to understand the importance of the brand, because we were trying to move them up market in terms of their reputation and their branding, and it was and they were having the same problems. The people were so excited to be able to create an invitation or something on their own that they weren't maintaining the brand. But once you understand that importance of consistency, it becomes easier, and you can also store information, so if somebody does want to do something, that they can use something that's been created that is on brand. So it is really, that consistency is an incredibly important component of branding. The other thing is, this is whether it's you're putting testimonials on, a testimonial sheet or a brochure or on your website, or having happy clients testify and recommend you really does enhance your reputation. And right now, the importance of online reviews is just, it is becoming proven that the more positive online reviews you have, the more likely you are to have someone call you to find out more about your service.
And just in case anyone is not familiar with what we mean by online reviews, those would be reviews that people leave typically on websites like Google or Facebook that are independent of your website, where they've given you a star rating and left a comment. With the Google reviews, those can appear in search next to your website, and having reviews there and having good reviews there can make it more likely for someone to visit your site over a competitor's site. So you want to be encouraging clients who are satisfied with your services to leave those online reviews, because they do make a difference when people are searching.
And agencies often tell me, oh, we get great cards and thank you notes from clients all of the time, but they don't do anything with those. You can take a picture of something like that and put it on Facebook, and then if the picture doesn't show the handwriting big enough, you can type out what it says in there. There's lots of different ways to get those reviews either on your website or on your social media. It's important to spread the word.
The other thing we're mentioning in here, excuse me, although this is a little off the testifying bullet point, but understanding if your clients are happy with your service and your caregivers are happy working with you are two crucial things that you need to do. Because if there's something you're doing that is not making your clients happy, or something you're doing that's turning caregivers away, then you're not going to be able to maintain that excellent service. So, and if you are using a tool, a customer satisfaction tool, for your customers and for your caregivers, then you're going to continually strive to create an excellent service and an excellent place for people to work, because you've got good information to work from.
Yeah, and I think the difference that we're trying to show here is that when you collect and display testimonials on your own, that's excellent. You should be doing that. You should have testimonials on your website. Like Marissa said, if you get a card and you want to take a picture of that and put that on Facebook and type out what the person said, that's also great. Online reviews are reviews that you don't control, so they are reviews that someone else has given you without submitting it to you to put on your website. The same thing with satisfaction management tools. Again, you're showing that you are allowing your agency to be measured by a third party, and you're displaying the results of that on your website. You're saying we're open to this third party measuring the satisfaction of our clients and our caregivers. We're consistently working to improve ourselves based on that measurement. And this is what we've achieved. We've earned this new level of satisfaction.
The other thing is relationships. The people-to-people networking, there is no substitute for that. And home care really is a people-oriented industry. I mean, you're dealing with families, you're dealing with people, and you're also dealing with people who are referring you to those people. So you're hiring people that you're interviewing and interfacing with, and that are, in very personal situations with people. So, this whole idea in relationships is you have to know your employees. You have to make certain that you're working with people who are going to provide good customer service. You have to know that the people that you've hired that are going into the homes are going to treat the people you're caring for as you would treat your own family members. So this whole relationship idea is that you really do have to, in your local area, do as much as you can to invest in the relationships with your clients, with your potential referral sources, and with your employees. And it all needs to be personal. I got a kick out of a client a few years ago who we were trying to teach how do you respond to an inquiry. And we'd given him very specific information. So in a Word document, so you get a Word document for the mother who, my mother's got Alzheimer's. So when you sent the response back, you were very personalizing it. Well, the funny thing was, and although it's actually not so funny, that they were sending an email, but then they were, instead of copying that text and putting it in the email, they were attaching the file, and the file said, Alzheimer's mother, So obviously they were trying to make it personal, but they'd missed that one point, and they were sending them a generic email instead of a personal email. So you really do have to think about how do you personalize the things that you're doing and make them seem personal. And again, whether no matter what size your agency is, you can make people feel important, and you can be personal with them.
Yeah, I think all of this goes back to the point that franchises have systems already in place for these things, and many times independent agencies do not, and that's why they need the help of outside agencies to kind of help them create these repeatable processes and marketing campaigns.
Customer loyalty is obviously what you want, because if you have a happy customer and you can get them to refer their friends to you or to talk about you, then you are going to get more customers like that customer. And the same with your caregivers. If your caregivers are happy working with you, and they're going to tell their friends. So when one of their friends is ready to enter the workforce or to switch jobs, maybe come out of a hospital and do home care, or come out of retirement and provides some care in the home, they're going to refer to you if they love where they work and if the clients love the service that they're getting. And there's different ways to do this. We have a great customer love campaign that we do that really just touches base, makes certain that everyone's happy, makes certain that there's not anything we're missing. It's just really those kinds of things that will make you stand out. And again, we're talking about competing with the big guys, and this is not rocket science. This is just understanding what it is you need to do and then implementing it.
Yeah, a lot of it is proactive communication. Often you don't communicate with clients or staff unless you've got some kind of crucial information to share. Nurturing relationships is more about proactive communication, where you're touching base to say, how are you doing? We appreciate you, and being very proactive about communicating with people on a regular basis, not just when something's wrong or an issue has come up.
The other thing that oftentimes I see overlooked in home care businesses is the importance of having that direct care staff on your team. And in order to have them on your team, you have to make them feel a part of your team. And what is the one thing that the clients refer to when they're talking about excellent service? It's consistency of staffing. If you can provide consistency of staffing, a good match obviously, but then consistency once that match has been made, then you are going to win over the client. You're probably also going to win over the caregiver if they like the client and if they're happy with where they're going. But this is a mindset, a management mindset that really works for companies that provide excellent service, and that is including that caregiver, the direct care provider, as a part of the care team. Now, that care team may be more than just your agency, the adult daughter or son, and the caregiver. It may be neighbors, it may be, you know, a lawyer or an accountant or something, or a trust officer, but actually making that caregiver feel important and listening to that caregiver. That more than anything is going to keep your caregivers working for you and will help with your retention. You know, we don't teach customer service in home care, but it certainly is something. I mean, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and the meal was fabulous, but the service was lousy, and you left, you know, feeling you may not go back there again? Customer service is something, again, this is a people business. This is something that has to happen throughout, and customer service starts obviously with a good attitude, but it also falls into anything they want, including resolving conflicts. And there will be conflicts in home care. I think every single client I ever had when I had my home care business, at some point in time there was a conflict. And one of the things that, I'll just share this because what I learned and what I try to teach others is, if someone is upset at you or mad at you or angry or whatever, if you can make yourself not be defensive, because in the end it really doesn't matter whose fault it was. What matters is this person is upset. Okay, so they're upset. So the one thing you really have to do is just listen to them. Listen and let them vent, let them rant, let them rave, let them scream at you, whatever. And then at the end of that vent, all you have to do is say, I'm so sorry that you've had this issue. What is it I could do to make you feel better? What is it I could do to help? And oftentimes, just by listening and letting them vent, you've already done it. The wrong thing that most people think about is they automatically start to say, well, we'll just credit you that, you know, those hours of service or something. Well, that doesn't help you because you're losing money on it, and it doesn't help them really because that doesn't satisfy the problem. Whatever the problem was, hopefully you listen to it and you will try to fix it, but in terms of their immediate need, they most likely will just want you to listen to them and hear them. The concierge mentality is something in private pay home care that hopefully everyone here does. I don't really know that you can teach being helpful, but going beyond what they expect, and every single time that you end a conversation with anyone that is talking to you about services, in that, was there anything else I can do for you? Now, that does aggravate me when I've called about a specific thing with a phone company or something, but because they've solved your problem or haven't solved your problem. But in home care, there's always, you know, that whole, is there anything else I can do for you attitude. The customer service winning attitude is something that, if you could just get everyone in your organization to do that and then write down what the person says and actually try to do it, that will help with your reputation as well. Now, well, there's a lot. This is really important. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. The training for direct staff, it's not just training in the kinds of things they might have to do in terms of providing care, but it's also in the things that clients expect. Have you trained your staff in how to set a table, how to answer the door, how to answer the phone, how to be a polite and respectful guest in someone's home? Do they know what to do when the condition changes in the home, when there's a change that may not be something major, but it is a change from something that they've done before? Are they oriented to your company? And when they do that orientation, are you including your branding information? Why are you in business? What sets you apart? Why does that caregiver want to work for you? And how are you going to make their lives better? And how can you work together to make the clients' lives better? So lots of different training available, and now there's so much training available online, that if someone has a skill set that needs to be refreshed or maybe needs to be taught, then you are going to set yourself apart if your staff is well trained. I got a question at a conference recently that I didn't answer correctly, and after the conference I got home and I thought about the question was, what kind of training, if you could say one kind of training, what would that be that you would suggest to people that they get? And what I wish I had said was how to deal with a client who has Alzheimer's disease, because working with someone who has Alzheimer's or a dementia is such a different kind of relationship and skill set, and it really is important that caregivers, if you're going to place them in a home with someone who has any type of cognitive impairments, they need to know how to protect themselves, how to make the client comfortable, how to make the situation a positive situation.
I was reading an article recently, and there was statistics. There was some survey of why the people that were surveyed, what their problem was with home care. And the overwhelming response was that the caregivers personally, their skill set did not match the need of the client. If you can make sure that you are putting caregivers into a client's home that are matched with their skill sets and their interests, it's going to make the caregivers happy because they're caring for clients with certain needs that they've not only been trained about, but they enjoyed and wanted to be trained in those particular skills. It's going to make the client happy because the caregiver's happy, and it's just a win-win situation that way.
And I mentioned online training. Online training can be done from wherever someone is. So there's lots of different kinds of online training now that you can sign up for ongoing, or that you can recommend to people on an ongoing basis. One of the things with what Marissa said too, I found when I had my home care agency that there were definitely different personality types, and those personality types that could care for someone with Alzheimer's disease were quite different than the personality type for someone who really wanted to care for a frail elderly person. So they're two totally different approaches to care, and I think it's crucial that you do understand that from your staff, because as I said earlier, that consistency of staffing is crucial, and will get that consistency only if it's a good match from both ends. Generating buzz, or talking about what you do. Do you know, there are all kinds of things you can do. Marissa mentioned earlier about people who are doing things and not communicating about them, but in this digital marketing world, it is important for a small agency to understand that it doesn't take a lot of work to really let people know what you're doing and what you're thinking about doing. And if you're any kind of organization that you're in, is important to let people know that you are out networking. Anytime you're doing any kind of educational event or becoming involved in the community for different kinds of things, there are so many different ways to now, with digital marketing, to showcase this, not just a press release to the local media, because we've had clients on a slow day, on a slow news day, or when people get tired of listening to politics, then sometimes they want to have other information. And so just, good human interest stories are oftentimes something that the press will like. And if they can get a picture, that's even better. So it really is important to think about, take a step back and think about what it is that you're doing just in your daily running and weekly running and monthly running of the business that could generate some publicity. And if you can't get it through traditional media channels, you can give it to yourself on social media.
Yeah, we had a client last week who posted a picture of two of their staff members out at a local employment fair, thanking everybody that stopped by. We've got other clients that if they're celebrating something in the office. They might take a picture of that celebration and post it on social media. People like to know about the personality behind the company, and sharing information like that with pictures of, you know, the real people who provide your services helps them get to know your great personality and share in that warmth that you're creating in the community and for your staff.
The reason we mentioned content here to showcase expertise is because huge numbers of people are shopping online and researching online and looking online before they make decisions and as they're comparing agencies, and we know that, and that number is just continuing to increase. So anything that you do that showcases your expertise or that provides content that will help someone answer a question, those questions that people have about home care, you know, when someone's coming from no knowledge at all about what to do in a situation, they are an open book and they're hungry for information. So no matter how you're putting that information together, then and showcasing it, it will be helpful. You know, even some of the larger franchises don't have good resource pages on their websites, and if as a local independent agency you may know some good resources locally that you can showcase, and you can get you know, showcase them and get links back from them to your business. So there's using your content to showcase your expertise. Again, what you're trying to do is position yourself as an independent agency to be able to effectively communicate the fact that you do provide an excellent service. You're just not a part of a much larger entity. You're independently owned. So so that's really what you're trying to do. And if you have a good presence in your local community, then you should have lots of things to write about, to talk about, to post about, to teach people about. Because as a, you know, having run a home care business for many years, I know you learn things every single day. So there's lots of things you can talk about and lots of things you can use for content to showcase your expertise.
Yeah, what I would add to that is that we're also in a climate in the media of seeing a lot of information being shared on how to do things and life hacks, and so, you know, people are really actively searching on the internet for tips and helps on how to do things better and how to help their parents better. And so this kind of information is something that people really eat up. Having it on your site can cause them to find you for that reason, but also it's information that you can push out to them to better position your agency as a community resource.
You know, and I will say that even though the information may seem to you like you have put it out there before, you can put it out again, because someone who has a mother with Alzheimer's disease that they've just realized because of a visit home or you know, some other thing, maybe a hoarding incident, they've just realized that there's a problem. They're going to be as hungry for that information today as maybe 5 years ago when you wrote it, and you can just update it and then include it again, because a lot of the questions that people have about home care and about the problems that their loved ones have as they're needing care, those things are recyclable, because people are always having new needs. And it's I used to call marketing home care an at-need, that home care was an at-need service, because people don't think about it until they actually have the need. That's changing a little bit, but it's pretty much still the same. So anything that you think is important, don't be afraid to also bring it up again and change it a little bit and add something else to it, because that information is going to be important to someone today. these are just some other effective tactics that we really didn't talk about today. We tried to, I know this is more of a survey kind of thing. What are all the kinds of things you can do to compete with the larger agencies? But this is just being interactive with your public and with your caregivers. And I threw in here this visual appearance of direct care staff in the community. Having your brand, we talked about earlier, but extending that brand through something unique, maybe a unique color that your caregivers use, or at least some specific thing that they wear. Or some kind of a vest that they have, or an umbrella, or things that do extend your brand with that whole direct care workforce. Because if you think about it, you've got little brand ambassadors out there. I mean, if they're trained appropriately, if they are visually appealing and look nice and clean and have your agency identification on and some other logo wear, they truly are your emissaries out in the world, because they're going to the grocery store, they're going to church, they're going places where people who need care might interface with them. So that is another way to extend your brand that most people don't think about.
Yeah, two things I want to say about the first 2 points, shares of content and replies to posts. Your social relationships with people, or I should say your social media relationships with people, with referral sources and people who are followers of your pages, should really mirror what your real relationships are with them. And so if they post something, it's nice to reply to their posts and say, I really enjoyed your information, thanks for sharing that. Or if somebody comments on your post, it's really nice to reply to them. If you were standing face to face with them and they said something nice to you, you would say thank you. And so you want to make sure that in social media you're doing those same kinds of things. It's a reflection of your relationship with them in real life, and so it should be complementary and beneficial, and go back and forth with them. We've also had, back to visual appearance, we've also had a couple of clients who have branded their vehicles that the person who does the initial assessment uses to go out into the community, so that when that person doing the assessment's going out for the first time to the client's home, they're going out in a car that's branded for the agency, which is a nice way to get the name out there in a consistent way.
We're just going to talk a minute. I want to throw in operational excellence here because, as I said in the beginning of this, operational excellence is generally where someone thinks about a larger entity. It's not always true that the larger entity has operational excellence, but I will say that software does matter, and there are several software systems out there, some much better than others. And so if you do not have one, or if you have one you're not happy with, take some time to look around. And if you can find one that also has a customer relationship management tool built into it, then all the better, because it'll make your contacts with your referral sources and with your family members a lot easier if you've got a way to communicate with them, an automated way to communicate with them. Also, you can track things. If you have good software, you're going to be able to see, how many times are your caregivers late? How many times are they calling off a job? Which caregivers are your best caregivers that you can use? And what are the standards that you want to keep in terms of the number of times someone can call off a job, or the different things that someone might do to either have a positive or negative experience with your clients. So making certain that everything is in order, that you are billing the client correctly, that you're paying your caregivers correctly. All of those things have to do with operational excellence, and it isn't hard to achieve in this day and age. So I would caution you, if you are not happy with your software, to take a look at some other ones and see if it isn't time to make a change. this has been more of a generic overview to try to get you to understand that the differentiation between a large entity and a small entity in this day and age is really the way that you are presenting yourself. If you're providing an excellent service, and we get lots of clients who call and lament because they do have such an excellent service, but they don't know how to talk about it. That's really what a marketing company does. A marketing company that understands home care, that's the caveat here, that understands home care and understands this market, can take your information and turn it around and make you look like the business that is providing the excellent service that you are providing. And if that happens, you're going to be on a level playing field with these larger entities, because when people go to search for home care, if they see a professionally designed website, if they see helpful information, if they see positive reviews, all the things we've talked about, they're not going to know the difference. The consumer isn't going to know the difference of whether or not you're small or big or a component of something big. They're simply going to be reacting to who is the best agency to take care of my mother or my father or my brother or my spouse. So it really shouldn't be a detriment at all, the fact that you are a small independent agency. It actually ought to, in most cases, be a positive. Sorry, I keep losing my, there we go. We're going to open it up to questions and answers now, and here's contact information from us. And I've answered many of the questions as we went along. So if you have any other questions, please send them in now, because I think I've answered everything. Marissa, Amy, you want to look at those questions and see?
Yeah, I know there was one question about ideas for training people when they're not, it's hard to corral a group of caregivers because obviously they're not working in an office all day. And I guess my best answer to that would be to start looking at something like doing a webinar for those caregivers where they can join over the internet, and you can share the information the way that we're sharing information with you now. It allows you to set aside a couple of different times, go over the information with them. They don't need to be in the office with you, but you can start sharing that really important information about your story and your brand, and as well as other things in a different type of format.
There's also a lot of online training tools out there, a lot of companies that have training on specific disease symptom care, and then they have quizzes afterwards. So that's something that you might look into as well.
We have a question here, which I answered initially. The access to the PowerPoint after this webinar will be online on corecubes.com/events. We will, as soon as we finish this webinar, we will post it. So we don't give out the slides, but we do post them, so the presentation in its entirety. I've got a question here about a CRM platform. I'm not going to recommend any one right now. There is not any one that I would recommend for home care, but I do know there are several software scheduling, business management software programs that do have CRM as a component of it. We've seen people use Salesforce, use Goldmine. Those are fairly complicated. We use Infusionsoft in-house, and we do help our clients with Infusionsoft as well. Do either of you have a CRM that you would recommend that's independent?
No, not other than the ones you mentioned.
Yeah, I think if you can look for a home care operations software that incorporates some portion of a CRM, I think that is the ideal solution.
Here's another one, specific examples of software tools exceptionally positive with regards to care. Well, I think the matching is the most crucial. When matching for geography, matching for personality, matching for skill sets, I think that is probably the most important component of a software tool that would help. The other thing is making certain that the caregivers are getting as much work as they want or not more than they want. That's another way that you can use a software tool to help you with your scheduling. Keeping track just of all of the things you have to keep track of, so that if you have a caregiver, for instance, that's transporting clients and needs to have their insurance updated or their driver's license rechecked, having tools in your software program that keep track of all of those little things. Maybe they've got immunizations that they need to have. So tools like that. The other thing, we mentioned Home Care Pulse before, really tracking customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. From the ownership side of the business, tracking whether or not someone accepted a job you offered to them, how consistently they are in working. A lot of those kinds of things will help you make operational decisions about your staff, and also can show you from an operational standpoint where you need to add in staff, what kinds of staff you need, what geographic areas or skill sets you need. So there's just good software business management for home care is invaluable if you want to provide good care. I think that's it for our questions, and we are at the top of our hour, I believe, so actually a minute over. Thank you so very much. We will be posting this on Core Cubed, and thank you for your attention today. And Marissa and Amy, thank you so much. You're always such a pleasure to present with. So everyone have a good day, and we look forward to seeing you again, and call us if you need some help.